Oh, yeah. Here we have with us Renee Pribula, maiden name Amygdalos, or Almos, cut short. Okay, and parents Chrysafina and Emmanuel, both from the island of Castellorizo. Three sisters, Violet, Angela, and Mary. Now, you've got a very, very different story, Renee, because you're Australian born. Okay, you're that first generation. Your parents, came out here in 1928, 1929, pioneers, but you're that generation who was born here. Can you tell us what happened to your parents? Did they settle in Sydney? Did they go to the country towns first? What happened?
First of all, my father arrived when he was 17, and he went to Queensland and did sugar caning. Then he came back down, back to Castellorizo.
I returned?
Yes.
Back then?
Went back and married my mother. He was 23 and she was 19. They got married in Castellorizo. They came out on a boat between 1928 and 1929. And they arrived in Sydney, and we lived in Darlinghurst. It used to be called East Sydney, and it was just off Hyde Park and William Street. All the Greeks, different national, Sirigotes, Castellorici, whatever, and Italians lived in those areas in those times.
But those areas back then were very, very working class areas,
yes,
weren't they?
Yeah, but they were migrant areas.
And can you remember growing up as a child there? What do you remember? Was there a lot of activity, kids on the streets, playing?
No. There was 2 grocery stores. There wasn't any supermarkets. One was Italian and one was Greek.
Oh, one was Greek.
Yes. That was the only place that you could buy olives or oil. There wasn't any paprika or anything like that.
And do you remember who owned that Greek?
I don't remember. Right now I don't remember.
But that's where your parents used to go shopping?
Around the corner from where we lived. They were corner shops in Riley Street, which was just off William Street, down in East Sydney, or King's Cross, whatever they like to call it. We all went to school here, my sisters and myself.
And what primary school did you go to?
We went to Darlinghurst Public School, and at Darlinghurst Public School in those days, you only had to year 9, which was intermediate, and year 11 was end of term. There wasn't like there is now.
So can I just, before we leave your childhood years, what was home life like? Did your parents speak Greek at home?
Yeah, we only spoke Greek until we went to school because they didn't know English. So if my mother wanted to go and buy a pair of shoes, she would take one of us with her because she couldn't speak English, and we would go into the shop and say, we like that pair of shoes, could you have it? And call mum in and try them on and buy them. We were the interpreters.
Wow. And what did Dad do? Did Dad have a shop?
My father had a fish shop with my uncle. The first one was at Paddington in Oxford Street, and they had that for many years until the families grew up. We never worked, girls never worked in those days.
Wow.
We only worked in family shops, in the milk bars, the cafes, the restaurants. We didn't work outside the family homes.
Wow.
Growing up was a bit hard because at school with the long names, that's why...
How do they pronounce Amygdalos?
Amygdalos.
They could pronounce it, the Australians
Well, they couldn't. That's why they cut it down to Almos. And we were a lot of people that had long names, like my sister had Contrafuris, which was cut down to Contos. The long names were cut to short as much as they could, so the people could understand us. We had a hard time at school, being with long names and not looking the same. we were called Dagos.
Oh, you were called Dago.
We were called fish and chips because our parents had fish and chip shops from the other little kids that we used to
And kids can be nasty too.
play. Yeah, but you get through it. How I learned to speak Greek was after Australian school. We used to go to Greek school. There was 2 churches here in Sydney. Agia Spiridona, Agia Sophia
Yep.
in Dowling Street, and Agia Triada in Burke Street. Agia Sophia was the one that had the Greek school. It was from 4 to 6, 3 days a week, and on Saturday you would go, so we would learn national songs, national dancing, be prepared for the 25th of March or whatever days were that we had to think. My Greek teacher and my sister's was Mr. Vasilis. He was a gentleman that knew both the languages and helped us a lot in our Greek school learning. And then we could speak English, and our parents picked up very, very little.
So you used to go to Agia Sophia as a family? That was your church?
Yeah, that was our church. That's where my sisters got married. I got married in Agia Triada because Agia Sophia had closed down.
Oh, I had it by that time.
Yeah. And I was married in Agia Triada.
Tell me something before we get there. What was it like balancing Greek and English growing up? Like did you have only Greek friends? Did you
No. We had a mixture of friends. Our neighbours were Australian on both sides of the street, but there was also the Greek and the Italian children. We all played hopscotch together. We all did skipping together. We would walk to school together. It was mostly the Greek atmosphere at home, and it was mostly if we went to the Greek church for the name days or whatever was the thing. But our friendship with the children were mostly mixed of what was around us. Some of them were very good, some wanted to play with us, some didn't want to play with us because we were darker than what the children were at that time.
White Australia policy. And tell me, what were the expectations of your parents being, girls?
Our expectations being girls were...
Good Greek girls, huh?
Greek girls we never worked. We only worked within the family shops. Our expectations were to marry Greeks, of course, if possible Kazis. If not, like my 2 sisters, one married one from Vatica and one married one from Peloponneso.
Xeni.
They were Xeni, but when it came to me and my young sister, we were really, really Xeni. My children used to be called half-castes. Only because their father was from Czechoslovakia. He was a Roman Catholic. We got married in the Greek church. My children are Orthodox. I always celebrated both Easters because he still remained, and I buried him as a Catholic, and we still remained as we were till...
Can I just ask, how does love work? You know what the expectations are, right? How does love work? Like you fall in love with a Czechoslovakian man.
Well, we had a milk bar in town.
Oh, the family.
We had a milk bar in town, and they used to go hockey playing at the glassy area in Railway Square. And because they were from snow countries, like Czechoslovakia, Russia, Hungary, they had winter sports, and they used to come into the shop and have their meals, and we were attracted to one another.
Wow. Okay.
Don't put that.
That's him, mate. That's him.
Don't put it in. No people know this, only my family.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, what's it like? What's it like being a good Greek girl marrying outside the community? How hard was it?
Very, very, very hard. It was very hard for my mother and father to accept. Because we weren't engaged. As soon as I told my mother that I didn't want to marry a Greek, it was very sad for them, but they rushed through the wedding to get it over and done with. And it was very difficult, but I'm not sorry.
Of course you're not.
And if I had my life all over again with the same person, I would do it.
So, but what is life like being with a Czechoslovakian man?
Well,
I mean, how do you balance your life?
Well, we couldn't balance our life because I wasn't allowed to go out. So there was no going out and being attracted. It was just an attraction in the shop. There was no dating, there was no going out. But you just get that feeling that it's the right person or the right thing
100%.
to do.
But as a couple, after you marry, what's life like?
Well, after we got married, my parents asked us to go and live with them.
Oh, okay. Well, there you are.
They had a shopping glebe. My mother and father had a small shopping glebe. It had a big residence on top. And when I came back he was a fencer. And when he came back from the job, we came back. My sister Angela rang me up and said to me, Mum would like you to go and have dinner there one night. And I said, he's my husband now, I have to ask him. And he was a very soft,
Beautiful man.
kind, lovable man that got on with anybody. And he said, yes, it's your parents. I haven't got anybody here. And we went, and my mother said, come and stay with us. They had a house. The shop was empty. She said, come and stay here. You help your father in the shop, and you can live here. And they had their own house. And that's what happened. And she died in my husband's arms. She got on very, very, very well with him.
What's it like working in shops?
Very hard. It's hard work.
Is it different working in a milk bar than a corner shop or whatever it is?
No. When you're in a milk bar, it reminds me about that film they made in America about that girl going to work with her husband. What was her father? That reminds me.
My big fat Greek wedding.
Yes, that reminds me a lot of my lifestyle, because you'd go to work with your father and your sisters, because we were all working age by then, and we would have, Dad would be the cook and one would be behind bar, the two would be waitresses, and that's how we ran. And at 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock when the shop closed, no cars, my father couldn't drive, so it was either walking or catching a tram and going home, and the next 6 days was the same as what you did on day one.
Did you have Sunday off?
No. The shops were 7 days a week.
Wow.
They were from 7, a lot were from 7 to 7, but in the later years the shops used to open from 7 and go until we had another shop. It was called the Arizona Cafe, and that was next to the Lyric Theatre in George Street, and that used to have interval, so we used to shut the shop after interval, which was 10 o'clock, after the movies were out, and you'd shut the door and then go home and have your next day.
So and where were you in the milk bar? What was your job?
Everything.
Oh, everything.
You could do waitressing, it was your father's shop, so you could do dishwashing, you could do milk bar, you could be the griller, grilling the things. whatever had to be done was done with whatever. We didn't have other staff. We were the staff. The father with the daughters were the staff.
And when you married Albert, and then you lived in the shop in Glebe, again, were you working in the shop?
Yeah, I was helping my father. He had come back and he got, because coming here at 18, he didn't have any education and there was no schools to learn English. He used to read comics to learn to read, and he used to hear the radio to learn English. There was no schools there. And after doing a number of different jobs while we were working, he formed a fencing company, cycle and fencing company, and he did a lot around the schools, around the swimming pools, tennis courts, his own business with another friend. And my kids, my boys, I've got 2 boys and a girl, my 2 boys went to university. One's an electrical engineer, the other one did commerce. My daughter's a teacher. We never wanted them to get into the rough of cafes. We wanted them, because he had no education and I was pulled out of school to go and work for my dad at 15. That's what happened in that.
So you didn't want it for your own kids, that's
No.
right. Yeah.
So we didn't want it. We made sure that he worked hard, very hard, to make sure that our kids all got educated. But on a weekend, they used to help him with the fencing and he used to pay them. He used to say to them, if you do a man's work, I'll give you a man's wage. And the 2 boys used to do that in school holidays or uni holidays to buy their cars. We helped them with registrations and things like all parents do.
How do you balance the Czechoslovakian culture and the Greek culture in your family?
Yeah, well, I asked the kids, did they want to speak Greek or go to Greek school? And they said no, they wanted to concentrate on their English in their university degrees. We asked them, did they want to speak Slovak? And again, no. But between my husband and I, we spoke English. When my parents were around while my kids were growing up, but they were babies when she died, they spoke Greek. They still know a little bit of Greek. I used to he came to all our church at Easter, or Christmas was the same, and I used to go to his church.
Oh, wow.
In Lidcombe. Whenever he wanted to go, I used to say yes, I was happy to go. I didn't understand, but I was happy to see him sing the church songs and speak his language and speak his friends. And every once of the month they used to have a hall at the back, they still do, and the ladies used to bring in food and you'd sit at the back of the hall and stay there till 5 o'clock with his mates and me, and I got known in the Slovak community.
I want to ask you one question, but how about the Greek community? How does the Greek community see you married to a Czechoslovakian?
They didn't.
They didn't?
No. There was very, very close people that didn't want us around because we might influence their children.
Oh my God.
They didn't want us, my children, to influence their good Greek kids. And my children have come up tops. And it was all because I married a foreigner, a xeno. But he learned a little bit of Greek and he gave me the best life.
Tell me, did you ever go back to Europe? Did Albert ever go back to Czechoslovakia?
Yes,
did you go back to Kazi?
Yes. He went back to Czechoslovakia on his own. He had to get a communist
passport.
a communist passport because it was still under Russia. He went on his own.
You must have been scared.
Well, we had a code word between us.
A code word?
Because he used to ring me of a Thursday, and if he would say to me, I'm having a good time, that means everything was okay. If he was saying, it's a bit cold for me here, he was scared. They had put his best friend to go around with him in case he would say anything or do anything. He went back really to see his mum and dad, but many, many years later, he took us all back. He took me back, my children, their wives, husbands, and we went and met all his brothers and sisters. And as today, my daughter is in Slovakia visiting her cousin, which she does every couple of years. My children have been back. My son's been back to Castellorizo.
Oh, so tell me about this Castellorizo visit. When was the first time you went?
I haven't been.
Oh, you haven't been to Castellorizo?
What
but your
happened?
kids have.
But what happened?
Yes.
What happened was,
Yes.
we had a tour with my husband, and we went to Rhodes. Robert?
Yes. You went as close as
But
possible.
listen what happened. And we went to book our tickets, and they said, yes, we can. But we don't know when we can bring you back.
Oh.
Because the Miauli, the boat, doesn't go all the time. And because we had our tour to catch in Athens, we didn't go to Castellorizo.
But anyway, look, you went to Greece, you went to Rhodes. How did it feel, like being an Australian born of Greek heritage, how did you feel being in Greece? Like, you know,
I felt good. I felt I could speak the language. I could buy what I want and eat what I want and do what I want. But I'm still Greek. I'm still very Greek. I still have the eortes. I still make the koulouria and the kourabiedes. I still do that. I also learned a lot from my husband. I learned all his kitchen. I cook all Slovak food, and my kids were brought up with the Slovak and the Greek food. Because when my mum died, my father lived with me for 25 years.
oh, wow.
A man that didn't give me away. But I feel very Greek, and the kids still say I'm very Greek. But it's a mixture. You can't say you're Greek and you can't say you're Australian, because you're both. You're both. I speak Greek, I love the Aussie customs, I love the Greek customs. And in between I put as much as I can for the Slovaks.
That's so wonderful, but
Isn't that
that's wonderful.
And
That's
my,
Says it all.
and, yeah,
Says
and
it
my, my children also feel the same. They feel for the Greek, and as much Greek as they learned from my mother, they know. But now, in their 60s, they're asking me to teach them Greek. But they did very, very well. My son ended up buying his father's company and doing extremely, extremely, extremely well. My daughter was a teacher for 40 years, and my young son's the same. But I can't express a mixture because I've got the mixture. And it's very hard to say I'm this, because I'm not. I'm both. I'm both of that. And my children, like my children say, they've got a lot of Slovak. My boys look Greek. Dark hair, brown eyes, dark hair. My daughter is very fair-haired, very blue-eyed, and very fair-skinned. She's a Slavic looking. And you love them both. And I did it because what was in my heart. And my heart told me this. I know I hurt my parents, but they forgave me. I'm
sure they did. They forgave you.
My father lived with me without my mother for 25 years, and I was cooking Greek and Slovak because he wouldn't eat Slovak.
Renee, thank you very, very much for your time. Thank
Was
you.
that enough?
That's plenty. Thank you very, very much.
You're more than welcome.